You know, most of us think our biggest money problems are because we just don't know enough, right? If we just read one more book or learned one more clever strategy, everything would finally click into place. But what if the real barrier isn't what you know, but who you think you are? Let's dive into this really surprising connection between your identity and your wealth.
So here's a puzzle that I bet feels pretty familiar. You see two people get the exact same solid financial advice. One of them takes it, runs with it, and builds a nice little nest egg. The other, well, they just don't. So why does this happen? It's super frustrating to see, but the answer almost never has to do with how smart someone is.
Okay, so you've got person A, who follows the script and sees results. And then there's person B, who seems to hit some kind of invisible wall. They both have the same information, the same game plan. The difference isn't what's in their head, it's something way, way deeper. It's a force that's working in the background, totally unseen. And that force, it's the story you tell yourself about yourself. It's this invisible script that your brain runs on autopilot, and it filters every single idea that comes your way. It decides which advice you accept and which advice you reject without even thinking about it. It's this massive psychological barrier that most of us don't even know is there.
This brings us to a really cool idea we can call the identity fortress. I want you to picture that, a fortress. These are the core beliefs we hold about who we are, and our brain will defend them like it's the last castle under siege, all to keep our self-story consistent. Let's look at a couple of examples of this fortress in action.
Have you ever heard someone say this? Or hey, maybe you've even said it yourself. It sounds so simple, right? Just a harmless little observation about yourself. But it's not. It's an identity statement. It's a brick in that fortress wall. And here's another classic. Oh, I'm just not an investing type. Again, sounds like just a personality trait, no big deal. But psychologically, phrases like this are incredibly powerful. They aren't just opinions you hold. They are declarations of who you believe you are. So here's the absolute key. An identity belief is not like a regular opinion that you can just change when you get new information. See, your brain has this deep, fundamental need for a consistent story about you. So it locks these core beliefs down and defends them, because changing them actually feels threatening to your sense of self.
And here's what happens next. Once that identity is set, your brain gets to work. It starts to filter all of reality, like a bouncer at a club. It's actively looking for evidence that proves your identity is true, and it just ignores anything that contradicts it. So if you believe you're bad with money, every little mistake becomes proof, and every success feels like a total fluke. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay, now this is where things get really, really interesting. We're about to flip a very common belief completely on its head. This is what I like to call the great reversal. It's the powerful psychological truth of how our identity really shapes our actions, and it's usually the exact opposite of how we think it works.
The way we normally think about it goes like this. Our actions shape our identity. You do a thing, you repeat it enough times, and eventually you become that kind of person. You start running every day, and eventually you start to see yourself as a runner. It makes perfect sense, right? But the psychological reality is actually the other way around. And this is the big reveal. Your identity is what drives your actions. It does it automatically, effortlessly. Once your brain decides who you are, it just makes sure your behaviors line up with that story. Your actions become a reflection of your identity, not the other way around.
And this chart illustrates the difference perfectly. Just look at this. The market drops. Someone who has an investor identity sees a buying opportunity. But someone who sees themselves as just a learner who hasn't accepted that identity yet, they see proof that they shouldn't be doing this. The exact same event triggers totally different actions, all because of the identity running the show underneath.
Okay, so if our identity is that powerful, how in the world do we change it? I know, it might seem kind of impossible, but there's actually a practical step-by-step process for rewriting that internal story you tell yourself. And the process really just has two core parts. First, you have to consciously, deliberately shift the language you use to talk about yourself. And second, you start collecting tiny pieces of evidence, like you're a detective building a case, to prove to yourself that this new identity is real.
Now, what's so cool about this is just how subtle but powerful this one change is. Instead of saying, I'm bad with money, you shift it to, I'm learning how money works. That one word, learning,
It's like a permission slip for your brain. It signals that change is happening. It opens the door to a new possibility without feeling like you're lying to yourself.
And then you become a detective. You start gathering evidence for your new self. Every small action becomes Exhibit A. That first $10 you put into an investment, that's not just $10. That is tangible proof that you are an investor. The first time you track your spending for a week, even if you mess up, that is hard data proving you are someone who manages their money. You're not just reading an article, you are actively becoming more financially intelligent. Each one of these is a little vote for your new identity. And pretty soon, you have a landslide victory.
And this is the absolute best part. When you approach it this way, change stops feeling like this constant, exhausting battle of willpower. You're not forcing yourself to do stuff you hate. Instead, it just feels like you're becoming. You're becoming the type of person who just naturally does these things. The behavior starts to follow the new identity.
All right, so let's bring all this home. What we've really seen here is that all the strategies and the information, they're only one part of the whole puzzle. The real, true leverage lies in the story you choose to tell yourself.
I mean, a world-class investing strategy is totally useless in the hands of someone who truly believes deep down, I'm not an investing type. Your identity is the silent filter for every single decision you make. It determines whether a challenge looks like an opportunity or whether it looks like proof that you should just give up.
So, the most crucial point, the one thing I really want you to take away from all of this, is that the biggest, most powerful, most lasting financial change you can ever make isn't about finding some new tactic. It's about rewriting the story of who you are and what you're capable of.
Ultimately, your financial future is a story. It's a narrative that is being written right now with every choice you make. And you are the author. So the only real question left is, what story are you going to choose to write for yourself starting today?